Thank you, Chairman Barr. Thank you for holding this hearing. Thank the witnesses for being here today. Seems to be a little bit of revisionist history going on here this morning, kind of in line with everything else I've seen in my other committee, Judiciary. For years, I mean, the CFPB has operated kind of with significant regulatory power, and Director Chopra sat before us many times with that grin on his face, because I think that certainly he enjoyed the havoc that he was creating and raising throughout the private sector. He thought that was part of his mission. I'm convinced of it. But while consumer protection is critical, the regulations are overly burdensome and are poorly analyzed. They can reduce access to financial products, and that's been the issue since the CFPB came into play on these issues. So the bill that the chairman's referring to, I think the CFPB being accountable to Small Business Act, it kind of addresses some of the concerns that we've been discussing here this morning, and I think strengthening the agency's obligation to do the cost-benefit analysis. I mean, that's fine if you're going to come up with ideas of how you're going to have a direct effect on financial institutions, but if you don't have any cost-benefit analysis, it flies in the face of financial services, right? I mean, we kind of live and die by the idea that the numbers tell the truth. So, Mr. Pomeran, can you discuss how kind of failing to tailor the regulations for small business institution has a direct effect on their ability to serve small business and consumers? Because this has been the problem for us, is that you can't come in here and listen to Director Chopra tear apart the banks and the credit unions of this nation, and then on Tuesday, bring in the same committee and have a discussion about, well, you know, it just doesn't seem like the banks or the credit unions are really helping the average consumer at this point. So, I mean, there was this discussion that continued over the last 2 years that really made no sense, but there were never any numbers to back it up. And I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, I mean, we are certainly in favor of a more robust cost-benefit analysis when the Bureau is considering policy considerations that are going to affect either the consumer or small businesses. And oftentimes, the Bureau will ignore its own data that shows that there will be detrimental effects to actual small businesses or consumers, but proceeds with those rulemakings because of ideological guidance. We believe that the cost-benefit analysis needs to be paid attention to. We need to understand how it's going to affect the economy, how it's going to affect consumers, and not just throw out pejorative terms to prove a point.
Thank you. So under former Director Chopra, the CFPB saw a significant shift in its approach to consumer protection, right? I mean, it was characterized by overextension of its power. I think the director was proud of the idea that he could continue to kind of stir the pot on many of these different fronts. But, Ms. Keene, how would greater statutory clarity and limits on the Bureau's authority to improve regulatory certainty just bring more of a competitive and consumer-friendly marketplace?
When companies know what the rules are, then they're better able to compete. If it's more of a gotcha game, right, where you've already innovated and created new products, and then to find out that someone in Washington has decided they don't like that, that's unfair to companies, and it really does stifle innovation and the creation of new products and services to serve consumers.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there an example of that really comes to mind where everyone, whether you were in banking or credit union environment, knew that it was absolutely an overextension of the CFPB's authority?
Well, I think the most recent example is a rule that is still out for comment, which is the revisions to the Fair Credit Reporting Act rule. There are a lot of proposed new interpretations that are well outside the statute. Companies have built their businesses with an understanding of the law, and if what the CFPB has proposed were to go forward as a rule, it would require a complete overhaul of the consumer data industry, of financial services uses of consumer reports. That's a significant change and will result in a significant cost. It also will drive many companies out of business, because in the proposed rule, the CFPB says we want to now declare these companies who've not been viewed as a consumer reporting agency to be ones, and then they will have to comply.